All right, well, Kyle, thank you for joining us today for our lecture. We are kind of in the establishing phase of the new church, and we've kind of discussed last few weeks preparing for launching public services, building small groups, doing all those type of things. So we've been discussing those, and so now we're at the part where we really we have new people who are part of our church. We have hopefully some people who are brand new to the Christian faith and are being discipled. We have some maybe some Christians who are coming and are joining as well and joining in the life and the mission of the church. And for every new church, it's essential to have some type of new membership process or an assimilation process to say, hey, let us help you walk in to help you understand exactly what it means to be a member or a partner here at our church. And I went through yours back in December there at Two Cities Church in Winston-Salem. You guys are not far from Piedmont, actually, where our students are from. And I went through it just to learn. We were 2 months away from moving ourselves to Calgary, and so we weren't going through to join your church. So you almost compelled me to stay. So, but I went through it just to kind of see and get some ideas. And something that we're going to start using in some version of this here in Calgary. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about the idea of the weekender, as you call it, and then kind of let's discuss through why it's necessary, how it's helping the church, and also just the pieces of the weekender, which is a Friday, Saturday, and even a Sunday experience.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for having me on. I'm grateful to just be a part of this, share a little bit about our experience and what seems to right now have really worked well for us. I've got to give credit to Mercy Hill Church, a church in Greensboro, North Carolina, that really gave us the idea of the Weekender. We actually even were, with their permission, took the name the Weekender, kind of wanted to create it as an experience. So part of it, calling it even the Weekender, made it kind of feel more not as much like in a one-time event, but something that was going to take place over several days. One of the geniuses, I think, of the Weekender is you get at least 3 touches, like you just said. So you get a Friday night touch for about, our session goes about 2.5 hours. I believe it's 6 to 8:30, and then we have another 2.5 hours, 9 to 11:30 in the morning on Saturday, and then they attend a service, and then we have 2 services. In the middle of our services, they get to hear about a serving opportunity, and they get to shadow. It depends on what the opportunity is. If it's parking, they can shadow right away. If it's kids ministry, they can shadow kind of from a distance, see a couple things. Depends on where they're going to serve. So how it happened for us was we just, like a lot of church plants, as you launch, you have a lot of people who are interested. Speaking at least how it's been in the Southeast, people are interested. They want to know about it. They want to hear about it. We had a large launch Sunday, and then we started to have a lot of new guests that we were trying to begin to follow up with. And so what we just had to say, kind of the advice we've gotten is don't give people 7 or 8 options. Don't even give them 2 options, actually. Give them 1 option. So I think part of the genius, again, was that we said, hey, this is the big E on the eye chart. This is what we want you to do next. We want you to get connected. Here's a couple things we do. We announce the Weekender every Sunday. Every Sunday. We never do a Weekender more than 6 weeks apart, maybe 8 weeks at times, but usually 6 weeks apart. So basically, whenever someone comes, they're always hearing about it on Sunday from the stage. We only do 2 or 3 announcements. One of them's always the Weekender. And whenever somebody comes, they're no more than 5 or 6 weeks away from being able to take their next step at the church. So that's kind of risky on our end because we may end up doing a Weekender and only 20 people come, which is still very good. But, it's more fun when you feel like there's 30, 40, 50 people showing up and it's buzzing. But we just said, hey, this is important to do this often. So we announce it regularly. We hold it often. So probably 10 times a year we have a Weekender option. So that's some of the beginning things. Let me just say one other thing kind of to set all this up. We will let people visit a community group before. That's kind of the way we meet throughout the week in homes. We'll let somebody go to a community group before they go to the Weekender, but that's the only thing they can do before they go to the Weekender. They can't serve. They can't become a member. And even we've trained our community group leaders to push them toward the weekend. If people have been coming to your community group 3, 4, 5 times in a row, they need to be heading toward a Weekender. So some of the language we use, we try to be respectful, but we basically say if you haven't gone to a Weekender, you're still part of the crowd. You're not really part of the church. You're not really connected and committed. You're maybe just attending. So we try not to be negative in talking to people who haven't gone through the Weekender, but we definitely try to draw a line and say this is your next step to move from connected and to committed is what we'll kind of say. So They register online, they show up. We invest heavily financially in the weekender. One of our plumb lines about the weekender, plumb lines for us are kind of pithy ways we say what we're about. We say the weekender is our second chance at a first impression. So for a lot of times if people have been visiting us for 4 or 6 weeks, we're like, I don't know who they've met. I don't know what they think. They're checking us out. This is our second chance to have a first impression. So we spend a good amount of money. We buy good coffee. We have good coffee for them. The environment, we put out tablecloths. We break out the signs to welcome them. We shake, me and the other pastor, we meet at the door to welcome them in. We pay for childcare and have a good check-in process. Once they show up, we have a full meal for them, which we invest again heavily in. Not just we ordered pizza or we ordered barbecue. Oftentimes, those aren't bad things. That's might be where you need to start. We actually a lot of times we have a lady in the church and a few friends who we pay for it, but they will cook lasagna and they'll do an Italian night, and they actually do that. So, and then we actually also have a dessert that night as well, and that's intentional as well. We'll actually have a big meal. The first, so I'll stop there. Also to say, we have people sit in round tables that are hosted by former current members and former people who went through the weekender, who now, as a married couple, are hosting a table of usually 6 to 8 people, where they're able to kind of, on a personal level, answer some questions. And so that's also been a discipleship moment for our people in our church. Hey, we want you to continue to hear the vision and the values. That's another way we talk about the weekender. We say it's where you hear the vision and the values of our church. They're able to hear from a table host about their experience. The table hosts are able to kind of rehear the vision. So I can tell you more about the content we do there, but that's kind of some of the setup of how it works. The last thing I'll say is we talk about it as vision. As I'm saying it now, it's reminding me. We say it's vision, value, and vehicle. So we basically say, look, you can have the vision and the values of Two Cities Church or whatever church the person's at, but we say, are you going to actually get in the vehicle? Are you going to get with this people and come with us on mission, and don't just attend and love the vision and values? Get in the vehicle and come with us.
And when we went, for us, we had an 18-month-old son, and you guys provided free childcare. So when we got there, we knew that he could have dinner with us, and then we took him to the childcare. And that evening we had it very well laid out, and we got to meet one of your small group leaders who was there at the table, and he was part of the original launch team. And so even hearing his story about how he moved from Raleigh, Durham with you, and it was really cool to connect, because it gave. So what Jill and I tried to do when we went, we tried to sit here and think, okay, what if we were really trying to join Two Cities? We were just interested, but we weren't really quite sure yet. And so we kind of sat there with that eye. And so we were just watching everything, and it's like, okay, the meal was good, the coffee was good. I'm a coffee snob, and so that was good. I can vouch for that. But the whole evening was actually very well prepared. Nothing drug out. It wasn't anything. There was no boring moments or anything. But it was what I needed to know in order to hear, what is the vision of this church? What are the values? If I were to join, what do you want me to do? And that was the vehicle you mentioned, because so often I think, if you grew up in a more of a traditional church, we walk down the aisle, you signed a card, all of a sudden you remember, and people kind of vote at the end. And then, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong or sinful about that. I think it may be unhelpful, though, if that's all they do and there's no strategic next steps. And so what I like about the Weekender was that it was a strategic next step that says, you actually have laid out exactly what I need to know to do what I need to do, because I want to join this church. And I think you would share with me the success rate, the percentage of people you're finding. What was that again?
Sorry.
People who are becoming members of the church after going through it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I would need to double check on this, but I would say, let's just say at least half of the people who come to the weekend are going to become members. And then another thing I didn't say earlier is, after you come to the weekender, if you do not become a member, you can still serve in a limited capacity. So this is part of our philosophy is, what are people's next step? We don't want to be grouchy. We don't want to be overly, you can't do this. What we've found is that we've had several people who've come, they went through the weekender, they loved it, they weren't ready to, because we make them sign a covenant. We make them hold to the confession of faith. We talk about the meaningful membership. So we have a few people who say, no, I'll just serve for a season. And they start to serve, and we've had them come back and say, hey, at this point, I think we're now ready to become members. We want to serve at a deeper level. We want to commit financially at a deeper level, And so we've just found it helpful to give people next steps. I would say the people who come and then serve is close to 100%.
Wow, that's really cool.
Who at least decide we're going to serve in some capacity once or twice a month. Give you an example. We have right now, and we're a brand new church, 6 months old. We have 180 adults who are signed up to serve regularly.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's actually incredible. And I would say it was to in large part because of our weekender.
Wow.
That we have a really, we basically, we can get into that, but we basically tell people what we want them to do.
Yeah. It also connects them to because one of the, I guess, values is the small group aspect of your church's ministry. That you don't want people just to attend on a Sunday for worship service. You actually want them to get connected to a small group. And so I think that's one of the other really good things is that it's not just about find your place to serve, whether it's parking, greeting, audiovisual, kids, worship team, something like that. But it's also, there was a whole section that we went through about the value of being in community and why it's not just, hey, we recommend you be in a community group. Wait, do you call them community groups or what?
That's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that was really strong too, because it wasn't just here's what you want from me, but it's here's how I can actually grow myself. Here's how I can be a part of something and not just I'm not just a participant anymore. I'm part of a community and I'm also contributing to this community, and I understand why. And so I just want to kind of mention the guy that you guys put together, because I think this was so good to have, because even now I can look back at this. This was 4 months ago that I went through this during the weekender with you guys. And so, class, I'll kind of blow this up a little bit so you can see it a little bit better on the screen. But it's basically a notebook that they have put together that has their vision, values, even why Winston-Salem, why coming here as a new church. So Pastor Kyle and Pastor Dave also kind of tag team and went in between and did each session and kind of went through, and so it talks about the vision and values, the different distinctives about what they believe about the Bible, so I understood your theology right off the bat in one of the sessions, and from connected to committed, and then talking about being committed to a community. There's a session on commitment to generosity, so you actually talk about tithing and the benefit of it, because if you want to be a member, biblically speaking, a member is one who is giving not just of their time to serve, but also of their finances. And then there's a commitment to serve, and what I really liked was that the weekender didn't just end with saying, okay, so we hope that you find one of these places to come and serve. You laid out all the information. You kind of talked through the different ways we could have served. But then you said, when you come back tomorrow, which would have been Sunday, because the last session we had was Saturday, when you come back tomorrow, in between the worship services, you're going to shadow that team and get to watch. And for me, that was big, because if not, I was sitting there thinking on Saturday, okay, well, if they don't tell me where it is, am I really going to be that motivated to do that soon? Maybe in a couple weeks or 2 months down the road, I may go and check out the audio-visual team because I like to run PowerPoint or something like that, a Pro Presenter. But it was that next day. And so so Jill and I, we came, and for us, we actually shadowed the kids side of the ministry, because we were more curious some of the really unique things behind the scenes, and that's going to be another lecture for another day that I'd love to do with maybe some of your kids ministry team one day. But we just shadowed that to see what that was like, to get some ideas for us. But we saw people out there in the parking lot, some at the door. There were some who were happy in just different capacities. So I really think there's a lot of really great value, because you've laid it out, and you have something that they can come back to whenever they want to, and it has almost everything that you have. Everything I need to know about your church is in here. Even has a few appendices in the back to kind of help explain some stuff, which is something that you guys reference as you go through. So and there's also there was a kind of a testimony sheet. You just want to know about just you asked us to describe our testimony. I think we did that the first night actually.
That's right.
Yeah, we sat down, we wrote it all out. How would you explain the gospel to someone, and briefly describe your baptism? So here you're kind of weeding out people who may not know Christ at all, or they thought they knew Jesus, but they can't articulate the gospel. And so then you get the chance as pastors to connect them deeper into discipleship, or actually to let them lead them to Christ. And then you also have a covenant page on the very back that you just kind of sign your name that, I'm going to take part of this on-ramp Sunday. I'm going to check it out in a new member covenant. So I think this is just really, really helpful. And if I can share some of these ideas with the students, with your permission, I will. But and the thing I like too, and I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, I really like that your whole weekend, the whole weekender experience, everything that was the content, it was really contextual for where you were. Like it really fit Winston-Salem. It didn't feel like it was imported from outside somewhere. I know you got a lot of ideas from Mercer Hill and Greensboro, which is not that far. There's really no cultural difference anyway. But I really felt like I could be someone who lived in Winston-Salem, and I could be a member of this Winston-Salem church. So I really that really resonated with me, that it didn't feel foreign at all, but it made me feel very comfortable that I could call this my church. So, well, Kyle, do you have anything as we kind of wrap up the next minute or so? Do you have anything else that you would like to add about the weekender experience or anything else?
Couple things I'll just say. The booklet's important. Yeah, those are probably, and you could do them different ways. We probably invest $3 to $4 in every one of those booklets by the time we print it and bind it, but we feel like it's a great resource that people tend to, the nicer you make it, the nicer they keep it, and they tend to take it home with them. So yeah, you went through the whole booklet. Basically the way we do it is Friday and Saturday night is the more formal night, big dinner. And I give both sessions right now. Hopefully, eventually more people will teach that content. But it's vision and values, and that is we do go through 10 plumb lines that we really value. Our 10 big ones. I talk about 5 of them, and then we let them as host tables talk about those. What do they agree with, not agree with? What do they think? Then we do another 5. Then we do theological distinctives. In between there, we have dessert and hang out that night, and it's a great time. They come back Saturday morning. We feed them another nice breakfast. So it's just kind of come back. It's going to be another 2.5 hours. I know you were just here, but we're going to give you eggs and bacon and biscuits, and it's going to be awesome, and there's going to be good coffee again. And they come back, and that's also our way to kind of show generosity as well, as just organizational generosity and hospitality. Mm-hmm. So they come back, and then we basically intentionally chose the 3 things that we thought would be most meaningful for people getting connected. So you mentioned those as well, but just a community. So we teach on biblical community, and then we give them an application, community groups. We tend to have new community group leaders be the table host. That doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. And then the people at that table, they're getting to know their table host, who's also a community group leader. A lot of times, those community groups will fill up right afterwards. But we'll tell them, hey, here's community groups. Here's how you get connected. Here's what biblical community is. Second one, generosity. We use the generosity ladder. You'll see there's a symbol in there. We have symbols, kind of diagrams for everything. And then just talk about generosity. We talk about it as it means more than just finances, but it doesn't mean less than that. And so what does that look like? And then finally, serving. And so for each one of them, what we found, just as I'm learning this as a lead planter and as a pastor, that you need sermons and systems. That's what I would say. And so what I found, it was really helpful to go community group, and here's the portal to get connected. And here's how you get connected to a community group, and most people do that. When I said, here's generosity, here's how you give online. Here's how you do it right tomorrow or right now. And then serving, come back tomorrow. And this is how you serve. And so people really leave going, man, I know how to serve, give, get connected to community. We end with a brief Q&A. You got to be careful on Q&As because they can go sideways if the wrong kind of questions are sometimes asked. So we try to control those. We just try to have some brief questions. We pray over them at the end. We thank them for their time. And we just tend to see a real return on investment. Just as we invest there, a lot of people decide this is going to be our church home. We feel more connected. We feel we're ready to serve. We're ready to give. And then they become, evangelists and salespeople for the weekender. And we have oftentimes people at the weekender, at the end of the weekender, will say, can we come back and can we host a table? We had such a great experience here, and there's really been kind of a culture of the weekender. Everybody kind of knows that's the next step for everybody and anybody at Two Cities.
That's really great, and I think the constant communication is such key. Doing it well is key. And I will say one small thing that was actually really, I don't know if it's a psychological thing, maybe you meant to, but the fact that I had to register for it, like it was an online registration thing that I got email reminders about leading up to it. It made me feel like, oh, they're expecting me, because I can just say, oh, I'm just going to, oh yeah, I'll show up. But I actually had to register, put down, my information, Jill's information, our son's information, so you knew how much. So I think that was just a really, really smart thing. It's what I think we're learning this in church planning as a whole is that, with our very busy society right now, we've got to make things really easy and digestible for people and make it simple. Hey, register, it'll send you an email, you have all the info. But it also serves as a reminder. So I think that it's just those little things that you guys did well that, if I wouldn't move to Calgary, I probably would be on your membership right now and serving. All right, well, man, thank you so much for your time, Kyle. And you were actually in a previous lecture a couple of weeks ago when, I guess 2 years ago, when you were recruiting a team, and you and I did a Skype and talking about recruiting a team. And so, thanks for joining us again now. And what's one thing that we can pray for your church for right now?
Man, you can just pray. We're praying. There's a lot of things. First thing that came to my mind would just be for Easter coming up. It's our first Easter. It feels like our first year as a church plant. Feels like your first year of marriage. You don't know what to expect. We're still in the Southeast here, and that's the time where a lot of the unchurched, de-churched may check our church out for the first time. It's an opportunity for people in our church who've been building relationships with their lost friends and neighbors to invite them. And that's maybe the one time a year that they may come. So I would just ask for prayer for that.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely will. So, class, if you will, just consider praying for Two Cities Church and Pastor Kyle there in Winston-Salem. So, thanks, Kyle. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, take care. So, class, I hope that was helpful for you to see how having a very clear, simple, and straightforward assimilation process is just absolutely essential for any church. Whether you are a brand new church plant, have this set up and ready to go before you start. Even have some of your core team members going through a similar type of process before your church actually formalizes and has its own identity and different things in the first public worship service. Have your core group go through something like the Weekender. Have them go through and make sure they understand what your vision, your mission is, the vision framework that we worked on earlier in class. Make sure they understand all those things and how they are connected and what does it mean to be in one of your small groups or Sunday school classes, whatever form you have. And I think it's really essential to have for new churches to have, and I think for churches that are in a revitalization period, I think this would be a great tool to help in that revitalization step, is to say, this church has existed for 80 years and we've never had a really good new members class. And if you're in a more traditional church setting, then a new members class probably is a really great way to do it. Many new members classes stretch out for 3, 4, or 5 weeks. Maybe they do during the Sunday school time for 4 or 5 straight weeks. And I think that has some benefit if that really fits your church. The thing I like most about the Weekender experience, that it was one weekend. My wife and I, we came to the Friday night, dinner was cared for, and our child was cared for. We showed up Saturday morning, they had breakfast, and they had child care. And then we came and worshiped Sunday, which we were going to do anyways. We came and worshiped Sunday. We got there 15 minutes early, got to shadow some of the ministry areas, and then we got to sit and be a part of the actual worship experience. And so everything was done in one weekend. So just find whatever system and format really fits your church best. So if you're in revitalization and you need to maybe start this brand new, I think it'd be a great way to help revitalize, in that it's going to help people who are visiting and new people start to see exactly what our church is about. Maybe even have some of your current membership go through it. I know of one church, as they were in a replanting type phase, they had a good number of members, and they said, hey, your membership at the end of this year, we're going to consider no one members, not even the pastors and the staff. No one is a member. We want to just kind of clean off our roll, kind of start fresh and find out who really is committed to this church, who really are our ministry partners. And so that January, they started with a new members class that walked all those through. Even though some have been members for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they still had them go through that in order to just refresh in a lot of ways and also increase a new level of excitement. So do consider that as you're planting or replanting, revitalizing, or if you're just in an existing church ministry that needs some help with getting people to stick. I once heard, actually over the weekend, I was at a training conference in Atlanta with the North American Mission Board, and one of the speakers was talking. He's a pastor of a large church in Las Vegas, Nevada, several thousand. They've helped plant, I think, over 40 churches in the last 15 years or so. Just a phenomenal church. But he said one of the things early on that he had to repent of was that his church was not making disciples effectively. He said it was brought to his attention that over a, I think, 2-year time span, their church had over 7,000 first-time guests. 7,000. Some of us can't even fathom having a church membership of 7,000. But they had a 7,000 first-time guests had come through their church in that 2-year period. But the church membership was between 1,700 and 1,900. So 7,000 people had visited, but less than 2,000 were actually members. So what happened with all those things? Some of them probably did become members, but the vast majority did not. And the pastor said, I had to repent in front of the congregation to say, I was focused on growing the church and not making disciples. And one of the clear things he mentioned that they started redoing was something like an assimilation process that said, hey, we want to get you into a discipleship relationship, into a discipleship pathway. And we want to start off with helping you understand what that means with something like a new members class, or as Two Cities Church has done, a weekender experience. So I hope that's been helpful for you today. I will, when Pastor Kyle sends me those documents of the weekender, I have a paper copy, but I'll hope to get a PDF copy for you, or something very similar. You have that as an example to use. But it's a very straightforward, easy way, and if you do it well, you'll see a lot of great results.